Have you ever felt a heartbeat that wasn't on the monitor but in your throat? I went in for an ordinary checkup and met the physician who would rearrange my idea of safety, desire, and doing the right thing. This is the story of loving my doctor. Carefully, ethically, and openly. Before we begin, please like, subscribe, and share this story. Comment your thoughts on boundaries, healing, and unexpected love below. I didn't plan for anything dramatic that morning. The snow along Packard Street lay in thin pages, like the world had turned down the volume to whisper. I clicked off my car's heater and sat there counting breaths, the way my therapist had taught me. In, hold, out, slow. I'm 62, a retired school librarian who walks at daybreak, and I had come to Lakeview Medical for a routine checkup and the quiet. Assurance that growing older doesn't have to be frightening. My name is Owen Carter. Inside the clinic, the air smelled of sanitizer and coffee. A television murmured weather updates to no one in particular. The receptionist, Sophia, wore silver nail polish that matched the winter light, the kind of detail you notice when you are trying not to think about the things you fear. Mr. Carter? Dr. Hart will be with you shortly. Dr. Benjamin Hart. The name sounded almost scripted, but when he stepped into the room, I decided some names are accurate. Late 40s, a little taller than me, kind eyes framed by laugh lines. He shook my hand warmly, then paused, a small but important check-in. Is this comfortable? Some folks prefer a fist bump these days. Handshake is fine, doctor, I said, grateful for the question. You learn to read the small signs. The doctor who wipes the stethoscope before touching your chest. The one who pulls up a chair and sits at eye level rather than standing over. You. The physician who explains each step and leaves space for your thoughts. Tell me what brings you in, he said. And tell me anything else your gut says I should know. I told him about occasional dizzy spells. A fatigue that felt like a heavy coat even in a warm room, and the way grief sometimes returns wearing different clothes. 10 years earlier, I had buried my partner, and winter never fully left that part of my heart. Dr. Hart nodded, took notes, and asked questions that did not pry so much as invite: family history, hydration, sleep, diet, whether I ever skipped my morning blood pressure pill because the bottle looked accusing. He listened, not the performative kind, the practical kind. We'll run labs today, he said. I'll order an EKG just to be thorough. And Owen, may I call you Owen? After I agreed, he added, if at any point this feels overwhelming, say so. We move at your pace. He left for the nurse to do the EKG. He knocked before returning. Maybe that was the first door he opened for me, the door of being seen. His phone call arrived with results that were mostly reassuring. He wanted to monitor my electrolytes and a small irregularity on one part of the tracing. I'm not alarmed, he said. I'm attentive. The phrasing soothed me more than certainty ever could. Certainty, like ice, can shatter. Attentiveness holds. We scheduled a follow-up. Between calls and visits, winter thinned. I kept up my morning walks along the river path where dogs tug owners toward birds I never see but always hear. And I noticed, like a flicker you almost convince yourself you imagined, that I looked forward to hearing Dr. Hart's voice. Not in any way I'd admit to a friend. Not yet. But, how are you today? Felt like a light left on in a hallway. If you've ever felt something for a clinician, let me say the responsible part before the romantic one. Feelings can happen anywhere people show up with empathy. They are not instructions, they are information. And the people who care for us professionally have codes and boundaries built to protect everyone, especially the vulnerable. I knew this in my bones. I also knew I hadn't felt my own heart step forward in years. At the second appointment, he offered small, doable tweaks. More water in the afternoon, watch sodium, check for medication interactions. Tell me about your walks, he said. I told him about the river, Granite benches, graffiti that kept turning into birds as if the wall itself wanted wings. "You're a storyteller," he smiled. "If you ever feel up for a community walking group, we host one on Saturdays. No pressure. Something shifted in the quiet. Nothing cinematic. The fluorescent light did not become sunrise, but I felt like I'd reached a landing after many stairs. You're not where you started. You're not where you're going. You pause, because the pause is part of the climb." I went home with an after-visit summary and a plan. Reliable coat, not glamorous, but warm. That night I wrote in my blue-covered journal. "I think I like my doctor," I wrote. Then I crossed out like and wrote, "I respect my doctor." A line later. Also, I might like him. I closed the journal, made tea, and watched snow blur the streetlight into a halo. I was old enough to know how easily hope can outrun wisdom. I was also old enough to know that ignoring something rarely makes it smaller. Sophia took my blood pressure. "Numbers look better," she said. Dr. Hart came in with a nod. Dizziness, improved. Sleep, steadier. "You're doing the boring." "Excellent work," he said. "Boring is underrated." Then he asked a question that felt as brave as it was simple. "How is your community, Owen?" People can meet every metric. Walk, eat well, take medications, and still sit awake at midnight, listening to a clock hold its breath. I told him I had friends, the occasional brunch, and a neighbor who borrowed sugar so often we agreed to keep a bag on her porch. I also told him there are evenings when silence stacks up like unread mail. He nodded without rushing in to fix it. "Thank you for telling me. There's a Saturday morning walking group that leaves from the clinic patio when the weather cooperates. Staff join when they can, but it's patient-led. If you'd like, I'll have Sophia add you to the email list." He said it plainly without insistence. I felt seen without being pushed. "Yes," I said. "Please add me." I left warm with gratitude and a growing complication. Fact, he had been attentive, careful, kind. Problem, I was thinking about him while measuring salt into soup, pulling on my hat, standing at the co-op. It wasn't fantasy, more a turning toward. That's when I did what older, wiser me tries to do. I called my friend Aaron. Aaron has been my voice of reason since we worked on Yearbook together in 1981. He lives in Chicago, sells used books that smell like history, and answers on the second ring. "You sound like you're either in love or organizing a sock drawer," he said. "Both are disruptive. Talk to me." I told him everything. The care, the steadiness, the walking group, the relief of being asked about loneliness without being made a case study. And I told him my heart had stepped outside in a thin jacket. "Okay," he said, voice gentle. "First, I'm happy you have good care. Second, this happens. People fall for the person who sees them. Third, and I cannot stress this enough, do not build a romance in your head while you're still his patient." "I know," I said. "I know like I know the alphabet." "Great. 2 parallel tracks. Track A, your health plan, steady and responsible. Track B, your feelings handled with support. If at some point you want to explore anything beyond patient-doctor, you'll need to stop being his patient. Not as a trick, as an adult boundary, and give it time, more than a minute." Saturday arrived. Sidewalks a chorus of cautious boots. Introductions sounded like a book club, where people live, how they handle winter, which bakery has the best cinnamon rolls. I kept to the edge, then found myself walking beside Dr. Hart. He wore a knit cap that made him look like someone's favorite teacher. "Welcome," he said. "I'm off the clock here. Folks call me Ben on Saturdays." "Good to be here," I said. He matched my stride, a kindness older joints notice. He asked nothing about my health and everything about my life. Books I love, whether I cook, if my neighbor's sugar policy improved her baking. I learned he has a sister in Portland, parents in Ohio, and a dog named Toby who treats tennis. Balls as sacred texts. He didn't flirt. He drifted among conversations, making sure everyone had company, returning now and then to ask if I'd tried the cinnamon rolls at the corner cafe. That afternoon, I wrote, "I am developing feelings," and I dated the page as if recording weather. Some distances you measure in miles, some in months of doing the right thing. A few weeks later, I finished a loop and stood on the clinic patio, breath clouding in winter air. Ben stepped over with a thermos. "Cocoa?" he asked. "Mostly milk and justification." We laughed. He poured into a biodegradable lid. When our gloved fingers brushed, a hush moved through me. Not fireworks, not thunder, just the quiet certainty that I wanted more afternoons like this. I wanted to know his laugh when it wasn't working. I wanted to see the off-duty version of the man who kept finding room for my answers. That night, I did not sleep well. Not from cocoa, but from knowing that wanting, if steered without a map, can cause harm. Morning brought resolve. I drafted an email, saved it, edited it, breathed, and sent it, first to myself, then to Aaron, and finally to the clinic's general inbox, addressed formally. "Dear Dr. Hart, I am grateful for your care. Over time, I have noticed feelings that make it hard to be as clear-headed as I'd like during appointments. To respect your professional boundaries and my own, I would like to transfer my primary care to another physician within Lakeview Medical. If you have recommendations, I would appreciate them. Thank you for understanding. Sincerely, Owen Carter." I pressed send, stood by the window, and watched sunlight find a patch of plowed curb. Was I dramatic? Possibly. But I was also, finally, responsible with my hope. The reply came from Sophia, with a note from Dr. Hart attached. "Owen," it read, "thank you for your honesty. It shows respect for yourself and for our professional relationship. I can refer you to Dr. Priya Natarajan, who is excellent. We'll make the transition smooth. If I can be helpful, please let me know." Tender, professional, complete. The kind of message that says you're doing the right thing, even if it stings. I met Dr. Natarajan, whose laugh makes exam rooms feel like living rooms. We reviewed my records, adjusted a dose, and continued. The good, boring work. I stepped away from the walking group for a while, not required but right for my equilibrium. In stillness, I practiced patience poorly, then better. I did crosswords. I made soup. I even tried yoga and discovered it is deep breathing disguised as furniture assembly. Time passed. Crocuses auditioned for spring. Then an email arrived from a personal address I didn't recognize. Subject: "Hello from Ben." I sat before opening it. His message was short and respectful. He thanked me for setting boundaries and trusting the clinic with the transfer. "If you're still interested in walking someday, just as two adults, not in a professional relationship, I would welcome that. If not, I completely understand, and I wish you continued health and good books. No pressure, no subtext. An invitation that understood the difference between hope and expectation. I forwarded it to Aaron with the subject line, "I might faint." He replied, "Do not faint, hydrate, then decide." I wrote back, keeping it simple. Coffee, a public place, daylight, no urgency. We chose Saturday at a cafe near the farmer's market. The air smelled of lilacs and early optimism. He looked like himself, but a little nervous, carrying the shyness that comes with wanting to do right by people. We ordered coffee and sat by the window. For a few minutes, I felt like I was stepping into a photograph while the rest of me caught up. Then we talked. Not about my chart. About 1970s music and why it still owns wedding playlists. About Toby, who had started sleeping with a paw over his nose. About the way grief rearranges your furniture and leaves the couch at an angle. He told me he had married a man in his 30s. They divorced kindly and share holidays. Since then, he dated a little, kept things simple. I told him about Mateo, my late partner, who loved baseball and overcooked pasta and taught me you can love someone's flaws because they prove a person's edges. I told him about retirement, about the quiet that sometimes wears too many coats, about yoga. We paused. Cafe hum continued, milk steaming, plates clinking, a chair scraping like a violin learning to sing. "Thank you for moving slowly," he said, "for setting the transfer before this coffee, for choosing daylight." "Thank you for the same," I said. We walked by the river. We didn't hold hands. When we parted, we exchanged numbers, ordinary and enormous at once. Sunday morning brought a text. Toby with a tennis ball. I sent back a picture of my neighbor's porch with the permanent bag of sugar. Humans are postcards before we are memoirs. We met again for a short walk, then dinner. A pattern, moderate, measured, considerate. Aaron met him on video, interrogated kindly, and texted me later. "He's excellent. Proceed like driver's ed. Hands at 10 and 2, small smile." We cook together. Ben handles a skillet like a conversation. Patient, attentive to heat, willing to adjust. He learned my afternoon reading ritual and my fondness for napping through thunderstorms. I learned his habit of leaving a note for future him, taped where he'll trip over it. One June morning, I woke dizzy. The room tilting like the floor had. Been poured wrong. It didn't pass. I called 911. The EMTs arrived with the careful kindness of people who practice steadiness. As the gurney rolled, I called Ben, not as my doctor. He wasn't and couldn't be, but as the man I was starting to love. He met me at the hospital lobby, sat with me, and waited until I was in observation. He only came in after I said it was okay and the nurse confirmed it. Boundaries, even when worry tries to erase them. They ruled out the big fears quickly, then worked through the smaller suspects. Dehydration, inner ear, side effects. The ER attending, eyebrows that could convey 8 meanings, explained every step. Ben did what love does best in medical settings. He asked, "What do you need right now?" I said, "Your steady voice." He read aloud from a book of essays about birds and people who look for them until the room felt like it had 4 walls again. Diagnosis: mild dehydration plus an inner ear disturbance. Manageable. They adjusted meds, gave fluids, sent me home, with instructions that sounded like common sense dressed in scrubs. Ben made soup, changed my porch light bulb, and refilled my pillbox without opening anything, because that was my job. He asked permission each time he crossed into my independence. A different kind of love, honoring autonomy as part of care. We kept our lives appropriately separate where needed. He told a colleague, without names, that he could never be involved in my medical decisions. I told Dr. Natarajan I was seeing someone who used to be my physician. She smiled with pragmatic warmth. "Thank you for telling me. Let's keep doing the boring, excellent work." Summer deepened. We visited friends, still at an older pace, respectful of knees and weather. My neighbor brought a lemon cake like a benediction. We drove to Saugatuck for a weekend, friendly, galleries, generous sunsets. In a bookstore, we reached for the same poetry collection and laughed like teenagers who forgot to be cautious. On the beach in copper evening light, he asked, "When did you like me as a possibility?" I told him, "Cocoa on the frozen patio, hush inside my gloves." "When did you trust me?" he asked. I said, "First appointment," when he asked if a handshake was comfortable. Trust is built from the beginning in small asks. He told me his version. He liked my steadiness, the way I answered questions as if truth were a privilege, not a punishment. He trusted me when I sent the transfer email, proof I considered the wider circle, not just my own longing. 2 grown men with sand in our shoes, loving each other for the evidence that when we had chances to be decent, we took them. Our first kiss wasn't cinematic. It was domestic. In my kitchen, arguments cooling like overcooked pasta we made in Mateo's honor. The dishwasher hummed. Toby snored under the table. Ben brushed a crumb from my cheek, paused, and asked, "May I?" I said yes. Simple ask, simple answer. Since You asked for a trusted doctor tone. Here's the gentle note. Consent is a sentence you can hear even when you're excited. Ask, listen, proceed, or pause. We did ordinary things that turned extraordinary because we shared them. Grocery runs, a seasonal produce box, a minor league game where the seventh-inning stretch felt like a hymn. We joined a community choir that didn't require pitch, only enthusiasm. We learned to pack snacks like parents of toddlers because blood sugar is a plot twist at our age. We placed pillboxes side by side and never once mistook whose was whose. Small. Rituals of attention. We talked about power and why codes exist. Our story is not a template. It's a singular example of adults making cautious choices. Some people would disapprove. We agreed to hold that with care. We kept therapy appointments. We invited friends to tell us if we were drifting. Love isn't a certificate, it is practice. Autumn arrived in brass band colors. We returned to the walking group as two men with name tags, no introductions needed. Ben still moved among conversations with egalitarian grace, occasionally circling back to squeeze my shoulder, a quiet, "I'm here." I walked beside Sophia. One day. She whispered, "Happy for you both," and then asked someone else about their grandson's math homework. Life continued, democratic and kind. In November, we hosted a tiny Thanksgiving. Aaron drove up, pie that could have been a thesis on nutmeg. Dr. Natarajan stopped after her shift, accepted a to-go container, and told us about a patient who thanked her for pronouncing his name right. We shared gratitude. I said, "Boundaries," and everyone laughed because they understood. Ben said, "The boring, excellent work of being alive." Sophia dabbed her eyes with a napkin printed with leaves. Winter brought flu that took turns flattening us. We were impatient once about a thermostat, and once about how many social commitments count as too many. We apologized, adjusted. When dizziness hinted at returning, I called Dr. Natarajan, and she talked me down like a friend with a flashlight in an attic. When Ben had 3 difficult clinic days in a row, I made soup and declared the living room a quiet zone where complaints were welcome and solutions optional. By spring again, the story settled into its permanent tense. Present. We began a ritual of Good Morning headline, sharing one piece of news that was least terrible. We planted herbs in mismatched pots. We set calendar reminders titled Joy, which meant walking, a sandwich facing the river, a bookstore visit where we each chose a sentence to read aloud. Sometimes we held hands in public, sometimes we didn't, both choices equally brave. If you're hoping for an orchestral swell, remember, at 62, with a man who measures time in care plans and clinic schedules, love sounds quieter and richer. It sounds like a front door opening at the same time every Tuesday. It sounds like a laugh traveling from kitchen to hallway. It looks like 2 toothbrushes that agree to be honest, rather than neat. We talked about the future, not bullet points, but living questions. Move in together? Maybe when a home feels right, not just square footage efficient. Pride? Yes, with sunscreen and lawn chairs because we are not auditioning, we are attending. Marriage? Perhaps. The question sits on the table like bread, available, nourishing, unhurried. Back at our first cafe, the barista remembered our names, a subtle intimacy. Light, gilded dust like a blessing. What would you tell someone who recognizes themselves in your story? Ben asked. I said, falling in love with your doctor doesn't make you foolish, it makes you human. Guard your tender parts by respecting. Boundaries. Transfer care if needed. Give time room to sort things. If the other person is worthy, they will honor the rules and your humanity in the same breath. Love, when it comes, is patient in ways we cannot predict. Ben said, codes exist because love is powerful. Powerful things need care. If 2 people are meant to find each other beyond roles, they will find a path that doesn't injure anyone. We watch the town go on. Teenagers laughing like bells, buses exhaling, a parade of normal passing by. I remembered that first waiting room, the television's murmur, the smell of sanitizer and coffee. How a stranger asked gentle questions. And I learned there was a door I could open, not to break a rule, but to honor it until it no longer applied. Walking home, Ben squeezed my hand. "Headline?" he asked. "Unexpected stability," I said. "Mine too," he replied. On my porch, under light that made a small stage of everything, he kissed my forehead. Another ask, another yes. Then the line I didn't know I'd waited. Decades to hear. "Let's keep doing the boring, excellent work of loving each other." People sometimes ask if we miss the early spark, the dizzy thrill of secrecy. We don't. The quiet is better. The rightness is better. We replaced secrecy with conversation and discovered that chemistry can be a daily practice of respect. The spark now is the way he listens when I'm searching for a word, how across a crowded room he catches my eyes like a lighthouse catches a ship. In a produce aisle, a stranger teased, "Still in love with your doctor?" I said, "No, I'm in love with Ben." Titles matter in hallways. At home, names are the music we use to tell the truth. Our grand gestures fit our lives. Last month, we hung a porch swing, paying the neighborhood teenager who knows how to level a hinge. We sit there evenings and watch the street keep its promises. The swing is not a metaphor. It is a swing. Yet it holds us the way a sentence holds meaning, plainly, reliably, with room to move. One more note because it matters. Our story is ours, particular and unexportable. If you're in a situation that feels confusing or unsafe, talk to someone you trust. A friend, therapist, patient advocate. Good clinicians protect patients by holding the line. Good patients protect themselves by asking for help when hearts pour too close to the cup's edge. Love is not an emergency. If it's real, it will wait for the ethics to set the table. We've grown into ordinary joy. Saturdays, we might go nowhere and call it exactly the destination. Mondays, I make soup. Wednesdays, he turns on every lamp, and I turn two off and call it a compromise. We laugh at jokes that wouldn't survive a stage and cry at commercials, where dogs do implausibly heroic things. In the final calculation, we are two men who met in a professional context and decided carefully to move beyond it only when it was safe to do so. That choice made everything gentler. If you're listening for a lesson, try this. Hope can be ethical. Desire can be thoughtful. Aging can be a widening, not a narrowing. When care and love decide to share a kitchen, the recipe is simple and meticulous. Ask, wait, listen, respect, repeat. We are not a miracle. We are a practice. Practice is the truest devotion I have known. Thank you for hearing our story. Wherever you are, whoever you love, and whatever office door you're walking through next, may you be met with the kind of care that helps you hear your own life more clearly. And may you find, as I did, that love is another word for paying. Sustained attention, gently, honestly, long enough to change you.